Welcome back to another episode of UFC Casuals. I'm Bobby, along with my co-host Andrew, and today we have a ton to talk about. We're starting off with UFC 293, one of the biggest upsets in UFC title fight history. We'll be talking about that. We'll be getting into some matchmaking for all of the UFC 293 fighters. Not all of them, actually, because some of these guys, not worth making matchups for. We'll pass up on that. Talk about UFC Noche in Vegas this weekend. A lot to talk about. We won't waste any more time. We'll jump right into the main event of UFC 293. Sean Strickland upsets Israel Adesanya by a very clear decision. I'll let you take it away. What do you think about this one?
Very, very clear decision. I thought all three judges got it perfectly right. I mean, that second round was Izzy, and I was like text because we didn't watch this one together like we do a lot of UFC pay-per-views. I was like live texting you. First of all, I almost had a fucking heart attack when Sean dropped him in the first round. Like, I jumped out of my chair. I was like alone, and I was like almost having a heart attack. I was so stunned. And God. But then Izzy comes back and wins that second round. I'm like, okay, here's where it turns. But it just never did. Sean Strickland just kept walking the champ down and made it look really easy. His defense was on point. I mean, I was saying, like, he had to have checked 90% of Izzy's leg kicks, which is just such a huge part of his game. The hands, the boxing was a clear mismatch. The jab was so perfect from Sean. It was just the 1-2 that was winning him this fight. And just the forward pressure, obviously, backing Izzy down to the fence. Just a masterful performance from Sean Strickland, the new champ. Holy cow.
Unbelievable, man. Yeah, that 1-2 was working perfectly for Sean. Teeps to the body as well.
Oh,
it was so simple. It was so simple. It wasn't anything elaborate, and he worked him for 4 rounds because of it. Yeah, like you said, his defense was on point. He checked so many kicks. Did a great job checking the kicks. And the head kicks that Izzy threw upstairs, he blocked those 2 perfectly. It was a masterclass from Sean defensively. And then offensively, he pushed the pace. He had him backed up against the cage for all 5 rounds. Was working the body with those teeps, was hitting him with the 1-2, knocked him down with it in round 1. First ever time Izzy's been knocked down in the UFC. It's just unbelievable. It was Sean Strickland to do it. The man we said had no power. Was the first one to knock down Izzy. Unbelievable. And it was with just a 1-2. That's all it took. Now it landed clean. So, that shot would have knocked down just about anybody. But, man, it's just hell of a performance by Sean. Defense was incredible. Pushed the pace all 5 rounds and made Izzy look like kind of a shell of himself, especially after round 1. Izzy's confidence just looked shot.
I mean, yeah, to get dropped badly like that in a fight that he just surely expected to probably get done quick. I mean, everybody, his teammates were predicting quick finish. He was predicting quick finish. I'm going to do a TikTok dance over his body. This is going to the easiest title defense I've had. All this stuff that he said in the lead up, and in the wake of it, right? And he didn't think, hey, I'm a worse boxer than Sean Strickland, and if I let him walk me down, his jab is money. It's always been money. He's not a powerful guy by any means. We didn't expect him to drop Izzy. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have predicted knockout, which we didn't get, obviously, but he knocked him down bad. He was a better boxer in hindsight. Absolutely. We should have known that. Izzy, he lets you walk him down, but he's so solid on the counter that it doesn't usually matter. But in this fight, he just let him walk him down too much. And he was too predictable, and especially with the boxing. I mean, his wild hooks in that first round. I mean, I thought he was winning the first round up to the knockdown, but it was, it looked like it was going to be another boring Izzy performance, just like leg kick, step back,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
something that's different about this fight from Izzy in comparison to other fights he's had, I think about the Paulo Costa fight where Izzy was beating up on the legs the first 2 rounds, and then late in the round 2, then he started going to the head with the head kicks. He didn't do that in the Strickland fight. He was trying to throw head kicks like early into round 1. I mean, he was trying to get that flashy knockout, which isn't his game. He needs to, and I know Strickland was checking a lot of those kicks, but do some work to the legs, do some work to the body, then go upstairs with the head kicks. He didn't even try and set it up at all. It looks like he was chasing that flashy knockout, and because of it, he got caught. He got caught by Strickland, and that did damage to his confidence. And you can see it. I mean, he was backed up against the cage the whole fight. And I think part of that had to do with, how he knocked Pereira out, where he's backed up against the cage, got him with a big counter shot. I think he expected to be able to do that against Strickland, but you can't just sit on the cage against a guy like Strickland for 5 rounds. especially the guy's defense is as good as Strickland, and expect to get that counter shot knockout. It just didn't happen.
And Strickland was so patient, and he just walked him down, and he just jabbed him, and in the end of their exchanges, he would just catch him with the right, just the end of a right hand.
As he was circling out, it was perfect.
It didn't have to. It wasn't about power for Sean Strickland. He just outpointed him. It's a perfect example of what Sean Strickland does. He's a points fighter. He's a spar fighter, right? He spars 5-6 times a week, whatever. Like, he just loves this shit. He loves walking you down and picking at you. He doesn't want to knock you out because he loves fighting. He wants it to be a dogfight, and it wasn't a dogfight. I mean, he just picked him away from range. Izzy looked scared late in that fight. I mean, we saw the end of the fight. You see the picture we have up on the screen. Sean is telling him, come at me, bro. Come back. Come back with something, anything. And he was just too predictable. He tried to overcorrect with the leg kicks. Like, he tried to get back to the bread and butter with the leg kicks. And he just wasn't there. Sean was reading everything so perfectly. I mean, what can you say other than masterclass Sean Strickland? I mean,
it was incredible. Hell of a performance by Strickland. First guy to ever knock down Izzy, and then clearly won 4 rounds to 1. Only reason he lost round 2 is just because of volume. I mean, he just wasn't throwing much. I'm sure if he, fought like he did in round 3 and onward, he would have won round 2, no problem. Unbelievable. We knew how good Strickland's boxing was, so I guess it, should have been a little bit more expected, but at the same time, that was so unpredictable. That was just so hard to call.
I just don't think you could have predicted Izzy being that rattled after round 1 to try and overcorrect on the original game plan of go out there and knock him out early. He overcorrected too much. He tried to get back to the basics, and the basics is right where Sean Strickland wants to be. So, and then just to rock him like that, I'm not saying it had any effect on the rest of the fight, but it definitely rattled, Izzy mentally to get knocked down for the first time in his career. And Absolutely. Sean took huge advantage. Yeah.
Fully. Both of us had Izzy by early finish. Both of us were wrong. I'm not even gonna be upset at myself. Normally I'm like, damn, I missed a prediction. Who had Strickland winning this fight? I mean, this is one of the biggest upsets in title fight history, if not the biggest upset. I know Matt Serra beating GSP is up there, but this wasn't a fluke. This didn't end in a finish. It was Strickland outclassing Izzy for 4 of the 5 rounds, and man, I'm still in disbelief.
And I've seen people saying, like, I'm glad that he didn't knock him out clean in round 1 because now we get to see it's not a fluke. He beat him for 4 rounds. Like, you can't even call it a fluke. There wasn't that first round knockout. Something crazy happens, like a Leon Edwards head kick. There was no fluke. It was straight boxing domination, walking Izzy down, and 4-1. Wow. Holy cow.
Hats off to the new champ, Sean Strickland. Not words I expected to be saying as we do episode 8 here. We'll move on. We'll move on to the co-main event of 293. Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov. Dominant performance from Volkov. Looked good in round 1. Range was a big advantage for him. Got a very rare Ezekiel choke late into round 2. Great performance.
Trains with Alexei Olenek. Cool to see an Ezekiel choke. He's the master of them. And the teammate learns from the master, right? But, man, Tai Tuivasa sucks. I mean,
very, very blunt.
He does, man. What is he good at other than brawl? He tried to brawl. He tried to. It just wasn't landing.
And that's why this matchup didn't make any sense for me because Volkov had that huge range advantage on him. And it's hard to brawl with a guy who's sitting at range and picking you apart. This matchup didn't make any sense for Tai.
And he was getting caught and getting desperate. And there was – we wanted, we said Sean Strickland had no path to victory. I think we should have said Tai Tuivasa has no path to victory. Because there truly was, other than a right hand over the top from the gods, somehow would have landed on Volkov's chin. Because, I mean, in every way, Volkov was the better fighter Saturday night. Knocking him down, 2 times. He looked hurt bad. And then just getting on top of him, he had nothing off his back. He's just a bad fighter. I don't know what his jiu-jitsu belt is, but maybe he's never trained jiu-jitsu because that was embarrassing.
Wouldn't be shocking. And maybe. Tai, he was trying to land those leg kicks, but Volkov's doing a good job checking some of those. And then he was catching the leg kicks too. He caught one and flipped Tai back. That's how he ended up on top and finished the fight. Bad performance from Tai. Not sure where he goes from here, but that's 3 straight for him. 3 straight losses. So that's not good.
And you got to just give him someone else that can maybe like brawl. But we've already seen Derek Lewis. He knocked him out. Yeah. So, like, where do you really go from here for Ty? He just looked awful. And Volkov, you know, steady in that top 5 as always. I mean, he's been there for years. And, you know, for such a long guy, I think I texted you during that fight. I was like, I wish Volkov was like 6'4", because he would be a hell of a light heavyweight. I mean,
yeah.
Just with the range that he has. Obviously, he wouldn't have those long legs if he was 6'4", but he's just a really solid fighter. And he's just a little too small for heavyweight. He's chinny for that weight class. I wish we just a little shorter, but he's a great fighter, man. He's a great fighter.
He is, and a great performance for 293. We'll get into matchmaking for both of these guys after we talk about 293. We'll move on to the third fight on this card: Manel Kape versus Felipe dos Santos. Great performance from both men, especially debuting from dos Santos. Looked a little bit reckless at times, but you know, I mean, he's a shootbox fighter. What do you expect? They're pretty reckless. But yeah, he did put on a solid performance. Looked like he landed some decent shots, but Kape's chin was really good, and he landed the much bigger shots, did a lot more damage. Clear win for him.
Dos Santos just overcommitting at times, and Kape with some beautiful count. The main thing I noticed during this fight is flyweights are so fast. Yeah. I mean, the lightning quick combos from both men, but especially Kape on the counters. I mean, in those exchanges at the end of it, he would throw 3 strikes, and you're like, how? It looked like one. It was so fast. Like, and he did so much damage to Dos Santos. He hurt him bad a few times. Wasn't able to get the finish, but you know, a great performance. Dos Santos in his debut, like we mentioned, you know, it was an opportunity for him to go out there and make a name for himself, and he certainly did. He looked like he could hang with a top 10 fighter right there. So very impressed with both guys. And Kape, you know, I don't want to spoil the matchmaking, but there's a certain fight we need to see, and absolutely. I think it's going to be a great fight. Kape is amazing.
Yeah, good performance by him. I don't really fault him for taking this to a decision, not getting that finish. I mean, he was fighting a guy who's got a length advantage on him, short notice against this guy, so he hadn't been training for a guy like this, and he was fighting so recklessly. You know, I can't blame him for not getting the finish here. Still a great performance by Kape, nevertheless. And Dos Santos looked good. And this isn't like a weak top 10 flyweight. This is a guy who's good in the top 10. I know he's 8 in the rankings, I believe, but really one of the best flyweights in the world. He's not a bum. So Dos Santos definitely earned his spot in the UFC. Probably would have won that Contenders Series fight he was going to have. So this is much more fitting matchup for him. Although he lost pretty clearly, still a good performance for someone debuting.
And it's great to see Kape get back in there because, you know, he had to be a little rusty. I mean, so many canceled fights. And him not thinking he was going to even fight on this card again after Kai Kara-France pulled out. So, you know, it was great to give him a good opponent, right? I know it was on short notice, so, you know, it was going to be tough to get a finish always. But just, you know, a good fight for him off a long layoff because nobody could stay healthy and fight him. Good to see him back in there.
Yeah, and I'm glad he did get a fight. To make up for Kai Kara pulling out, because man, this card would have been even worse if he was off of it. It would have been terrible. We would have had we had Anton Turkalj as the second fight on the card, Justin Tafa, Austin Lane on the third fight of the card. That would have been bad. So I'm glad that didn't happen. But yeah, great performance from Kape, good win. And we'll move on to the second fight on UFC 293. A fight we kind of just slandered a little bit. Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane. Good performance from Tafa. Gets the late round 1 knockout as we predicted. What do you think about this one?
Austin Lane, a big athletic guy, but you know, I think we kind of saw the tide of this fight the first time they fought. That Tafa it looked like he was going to get the better of him in that one, and then the unfortunate eye poke, obviously. Austin Lane. I don't want to be mean to the guy, you know. This was a fight that should have never been on a pay-per-view. So I don't want to like talk down on either of these two guys. It should, you know, it was a prelim on a fight night, and that's where it belonged. And they put it on a pay-per-view in Australia because nobody was available to fight from Australia. And you know, but we saw, you know, we kind of said it in the preview. We want to see, you know, these Australian guys are going to go out there in front of the home crowd and hopefully put on a good performance. And Justin Tafa, along with his brother in the last 2 weeks, they both get some good knockouts and keeping the family name strong, I guess.
Yeah, great couple weeks for the Taffa brothers. Lane, he was throwing some weird kicks in that fight, getting little out there, and Taffa took advantage of that. Stuck to the fundamentals of these big heavyweights and put him down with the big right hand or big left, I believe, if I recall correctly. Sat him down and finished him off late in round one. Good performance from Taffa.
And another NFL D lineman that needs to stop training MMA. Give it a rest, guys.
Funny enough, he actually fought Greg Hardy on the Contender Series and lost to him. Got knocked out in round one.
That was a cool little storyline. Two NFL guys.
Yeah. Moving on to the first fight of this card, Tyson Pedro versus Anton Turkalj. We called it. Turkalj is terrible on the feet. He showed it yet again. Got put down in round one by Tyson Pedro, knocked out with some big ground and pound shots and a cool celebration. Good. You know what? I know it was a terrible fight between two bad fighters, but it's a good round one knockout. And that's what we predicted. We predicted a round one knockout by the Australian to get the home crowd fired up. That's what happened. Anton Turkalj got put out of there early, as we expected.
And like you mentioned, it's Pedro with the cool celly. That was cool. We just got some excitement for the first fight in the pay-per-view, which was nice.
And the second fight too. Bunch of momentum.
Right. And Anton Turkalj is going to be flipping burgers at McDonald's in no time because holy cow, that guy belonged nowhere near the UFC. He went 0-3. I can just, hopefully he got a good little bag for being on a pay-per-view, but never step foot in that octagon again, buddy.
That was rough.
I wish you the best in life, sir.
Whatever you do. Yeah.
Whatever you do.
One thing I can't figure out is why the odds on sports books were so close. They were dead even up until the fight. I made a parlay. I didn't end up putting any money on it. It would have hit, which I'm really disappointed about. I had Carlos Ulberg, Tyson Pedro, and Manel Kape. Would have hit, but I didn't place it. But I was so shocked by the odds being that close, by being dead even. I was tempted to put some money on it just because I was so confident in Pedro winning. And he did. He got it done.
Maybe they thought Turkalj would come out and try and grapple, but he didn't, and he paid for it.
Yeah, he didn't, and he looked terrible on the feet, and he got put out.
He did throw a good knee as he was getting knocked out, but it was no match for the flying hands from Tyson Pedro that knocked him down pretty bad. Yeah.
And then the ground and pound to finish it off. Good win for Tyson Pedro. Would like to see him fight a real fighter next. We'll see. I guess I think that's all for 293. Not a whole lot to talk about.
I mean, the main event was the talk of the town.
That's where everything was at. I'm glad we spent most of our time talking about that.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the potential immediate rematch for Adesanya and Strickland. This doesn't make any sense to me. Look, I know Izzy's he's a cash cow. He's gonna bring in money. That rematch would probably do more pay-per-view sales than any other match you can make. But realistically, I think Dricus is very clearly the most deserving middleweight right now for that next title shot. And look, I know Izzy's resume at middleweight. I know he's probably the second best middleweight of all time. Great title defenses, great run, but he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. He had no defenses in his last reign. Make him fight a contender. No. I mean, how many immediate rematches is he going to get? It should not be him up next, but unfortunately, it seems like it's going to be off what Dan is saying already.
I mean, I don't want the rematch either. Like you mentioned, 1-2, TKO'd in 2 of his last 3 fights. I know he came back, avenged that loss, sure, but to only not even get 1 title defense on his new reign, how does that deserve? I know what you said. He's the cash cow. Dana White loves the guy. It was a huge upset, so the storyline's there to do the immediate rematch, whatever. But, in my opinion, Sean Strickland, he dominated him for 4 rounds. It's not like it was a split decision. It's not like it was a fluke KO. He went out there and was the better man. So, Izzy, lose 2 out of your last 3, get outclassed pretty badly. You need to contend. You need to go down to being a contender again. Contender Izzy is a great fighter, and that's why I want to see him fight Dricus because the storyline's there. It's a huge fight. I know that the title won't be on the line anymore, so maybe the stakes aren't as big. But the beef between these 2 men, it needs to happen. And for Strickland, in my opinion, that would just leave winner of Hamzat and Paulo Costa which I think could happen. I hope if Hamzat wins, he wants to get more active here and would, be open to a quick turnaround. We know Sean Strickland's game to fight literally any time. So, we could get that going. Yeah, we could get that fight going early next year if Hamzat was down for it.
Well, especially if Hamzat doesn't take any damage in that Paulo fight, and he could get out there pretty quick, I imagine. Wouldn't be too long of a turnaround.
Yeah.
Look, his incredible resume is his second best middleweight of all time. But yeah, like you said, 2 of his last 3 L's, no defenses in his last reign. It just doesn't make any sense. We'll use that to segue into our next segment, the matchmaking portion of this. I'll let you go ahead. You have Strickland, Taito Ivasa, and Felipe dos Santos. I have Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkov, and Manel Kape. I'll let you take it away. We'll start with the winner, of course, of each matchup. So you can go ahead with the champ.
Right. So Sean Strickland, I already kind of gave it away, because I kind of said what I want for Izzy to do, because I don't think he deserves the immediate rematch. So in that case, let's assume Izzy is not getting the immediate rematch, you could do Dricus, but I just think the storyline with Izzy and Dricus is too good to not let it happen. Because what if Izzy goes down and fights the winner of Hamzat and Paulo and loses? Then we're never getting the Dricus fight, right? So I really want to see them fight each other and Sean Strickland fight the winner of Hamzat and Paulo Costa, which, just assuming it's Hamzat, is a very tough fight for Sean Strickland. Just, I know he's a good wrestler. He's talked about he has grappling that he hasn't had to use, but I mean, Hamzat's on a different level. So if Sean could keep this standing, I mean, I think he could outbox Hamzat. If it stayed on the feet, it'd be an amazing fight. And then Paulo Costa would also be a great fight. And he's just such a specimen, a freak of nature, roided up for sure. So Secret Juice, yes. So an amazing matchup either way for the winner of that fight for Sean Strickland. I think that's what you need to do next.
Absolutely. I like that. I'm going to go in a little bit of a different route, though. I think Israel Adesanya should fight the winner of Hamzat versus Paulo. I think that makes the most sense because Hamzat, I don't think a Paulo Costa win would warrant getting a title shot just because of how long Paulo's been out. And then for Paulo Costa, I'd like to see it a little bit more. It's just, we're not sure what we're going to get out of Hamzat against a top middleweight. We're not sure what we're going to see out of Paulo after a long layoff. So I don't think a win for either of these guys is enough to prove they're worthy of a title shot. So give them Izzy. And if you can do Izzy versus Hamzat, you still have 2 massive stars in the UFC. That could probably headline a pay-per-view. I know it's not a title fight, but you don't need a title fight to make a pay-per-view. We've seen, with Poirier Gaethje, although there was a belt on the line, it was still a contenders fight.
I mean, Hamzat was going to be on main event of a pay-per-view versus
Diaz. And Diaz is a superstar, but so is Izzy. Izzy's a superstar. You can easily make that fight and have it headline a pay-per-view. And if Hamzat goes out there and beats Izzy, especially if he ragdolls him like he did Kevin Holland, you're looking at a superstar, a megastar on Hamzat, and then you make the Strickland fight or whoever's the champ at the time. And then I think obviously for Strickland, that leaves him versus Dricus. Dricus will be ready soon. He had to recover from the injury against Whitaker, but he'll be ready to go soon. And like you said, Strickland's game to fight anytime. He has no problem with quick turnarounds. As long as he's getting a bag, he'll show up. And I think he'll do that against Dricus. I think that's the fight to make. Dricus went out there, dominated round 1 against Whitaker, finished him in round 2. I don't think you can deny him that title shot. I know the storyline would have been so perfect for the Izzy fight, but I don't think you can warrant not giving that title shot to Dricus. So I'm going to go in the opposite direction here. I got Strickland versus Dricus for the middleweight belt, and then I got Izzy taking on the winner of Hamzat and Paulo. And if Paulo were to go out there and upset Hamzat, you still have a great matchup because Paulo, he's going to make the build-up interesting. There's going to be a lot of shit talk. There's already bad blood between the two. That's going to sell too. I mean, either way, it makes so much sense. Now, I don't think you could do Izzy versus Paulo as a pay-per-view headliner. You could do it as a strong co-main though. And then, that will sell a lot. That will add a lot of pay-per-views buys to that card. So either way, you're still getting a big matchup that'll sell. If Hamzat were to go out there and beat Izzy, which I think he would, I think his grappling is too good for Izzy. As good as his takedown defense may be, I think he's going to get him down and sub him. But man, you have a mega star on Hamzat, and unfortunately, that would probably spell the end for Izzy's chances at a belt. But you have a massive star in Hamzat because of that. So I think those are the two fights to make for those guys.
At that point, move up to 205 and fight Alex again.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the oddball out in all this middleweight talk is the guy who weighed in as the backup Saturday, Jared Cannonier. I mean, where does he fall in all this?
Well, who's he? I think you rematch him against Robert Whitaker.
Yeah, and he needs to get that win. That'd be a great win for his resume. But then where would he even go from there? I mean, who does he fight after that? I mean, obviously he's going to be looking for that title shot off a win against Rob, even though he might not deserve
a dominant win against Vettori. And then if he goes out there and beats Rob, I think he can just wait for the title shot. Problem is he's old though, so he can't wait too long.
That's fair. And even if he doesn't want to fight, he's just getting back to that top. Yeah, everybody in this division Izzy and Cannonier are kind of getting old. It kind of feels like a passing of the guard here with Hamzat and Strickland and Drickus. They're in their early 30s here. These guys are kind of getting up in their late 30s. So maybe a passing of the guard here at middleweight. We're witnessing in real time. I don't know.
Maybe that's what we need. We need. So we'll move on. I'll take the winner of the co-main event, Alexander Volkov. I think now this is under the assumption that Curtis Blaydes lose to Jailton Almeida later this year. I would like to see Volkov fight Curtis Blaydes. I think that's the fight to make next for him. You can't give him. He's gonna want to fight up the rankings. There's no question about that, and he should. He deserves that. But you can't give him. You're not gonna give him Stipe because Stipe is gonna retire.
Right.
Or John Jones. Even those two are out of the picture for sure. Yeah. Pavlovich is waiting for a title shot. Aspinall's not going to fight Volkov. He's not going to fight down in the rankings.
Already beat him.
Yeah, already beat him too. That makes no sense. So that just leaves Curtis Blaydes. And assuming he loses to Jailton Almeida, although Blaydes will probably be below Volkov in the rankings if he loses to Almeida, still tough test for Volkov. If he goes out there and wins, then he's arguably, I'd say he's probably one win away from a title shot after that.
He's right there ready for a number one contender fight for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You can maybe make him versus, because there's going to be a little bit of a logjam at heavyweight because of how many guys. I mean, we keep seeing guys getting, they're next up, but we're still waiting on Jones to defend his belt. We're not sure if he's going to retire after this. You got Pavlovich in line. You got Aspinall in line. If Almeida wins, you'll have him in line. So maybe do the winner, the guys who beat Curtis Blaydes, or you'll have Almeida. And then if Volkov beats Curtis Blaydes when they fight, then you can do Almeida versus Volkov. And there's so many matchups you can make at heavyweight. But yeah, point is, I like Volkov versus Blaydes, assuming he loses to Almeida.
Yeah, I mean, whoever would lose that fight, it'd be a good next step for him for sure.
Yeah.
For Tai Tuivasa, I kind of alluded to it earlier, where what fights are there to make that he's not going to get dominated in, unless it's just someone that's going to stand and bang with him. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I know someone who has been grappled on his last couple of performances. He's probably tired of being in grappling matches. He wants to just stand and bang. And Tai Tuivasa is the perfect opponent to stand and bang with. I'm going to go with Jairzinho Rozenstruik for Tai Tuivasa. They're both coming off bad losses. Both got dominated in most facets of the game they were fighting in their last performances. And it just makes sense. It's two guys that desperately need to win. The loser of that fight would probably just need to call it quits at that point. You're in risk of falling out of the top 10 at that point. And, like I said, they're both going to want to stand and bang because they're just tired of getting grappled and subbed. And it's a good fight to make for Tai Tuivasa, who at this point is going to have to be desperate for a win.
Yeah. Moving on to the third fight on this card, I'll be taking Manel Kape for this one. Pretty obvious answer to this one is to rebook the Kai Kara-France fight. I think you have to do that. But if that's not on the table, then I'd say Mateus Nicolau, who he's won 2 of his last 3. Those 2 wins have been against ranked opponents. He did lose his recent fight to Brandon Royval, so he should be fighting down the rankings. So he should be fighting a guy like Manel Kape. But that's under the circumstances that Kai Kara-France can't fight him for some reason. If Kai doesn't fight him for his next fight, he's just ducking him, plain and simple. So I think you rebook that Kai Kara-France fight. Bad blood between those two, obviously.
A couple of slurs in there.
Yeah. So some words were said. Yeah, a lot of bad blood between those two, and it'd be a hell of a fight. It'd be so exciting. Manel Kape, Kai Kara-France, both great strikers. And Kai's good, man. I know he's lost a couple in a row. He got robbed by Albazi, though. We know that. Everybody who's watched that fight knows that. So Kai's still a top flyweight in the world. And Manel Kape, he looks like he's on his way to being one. So that would be an incredible fight. Man, that could headline a fight night. It's that because of the bad blood and because of how good those guys are in that division. Yeah, I like that. I like that matchup next. It makes too much sense. Obviously, it was the fight that was going to be on 293, fell through. Bad blood is even worse now. You got to make it again, no matter what.
The promos for that fight night main event, there'd be a lot of blurs having to be put on there because. Yeah, that'd be the whole promo for their fight, and people would eat it up. I mean, it'd be a great fight. So
absolutely,
I could definitely see that main headlining a fight night. But for Felipe Dos Santos, got to tip your cap to the kid. I mean, for your first ever UFC fight to go out there the way he did, obviously reckless. He lost the fight 30-27, no doubt. He was getting caught badly at times. That was to be expected with someone with the speed of Manel Kape. So, but he looked like he could hang. I mean, sure, he lost a clear decision, but he looked like he could hang with a number 8 guy in the world. So I think he's ready for a ranked guy. Maybe you want to let him fight down someone unranked just to get his feet going in the UFC. But me personally, I want to see him fight another ranked guy. And there's a fight happening in October in Abu Dhabi. Muhammad Makayev, Tim Elliott. I'd like to see him fight the loser of that one. I think, the winner of that one is probably in line to be fighting up, especially if it were to be Makayev. Let's just assume Makayev is able to take care of business on Tim Elliott. I think Tim Elliott's a good fight for Felipe Dos Santos. They would stand and bang, and we'd see another Felipe Dos Santos banger maybe. So that's a great fight. The loser of that one's a good fight.
I like that. Great matchmaking. Very good matchmaking. I like that matchup a lot.
We'll
move on. We'll move on to this weekend's card. Noche UFC in Las Vegas for Mexican Independence Week. Alexa Grasso defending her belt against Valentina Shevchenko in her second fight. Grasso won the last fight by a rear naked choke that wasn't even fully in, just on the chin. But it was just such a strong choke that she was able to get it done. The rematch is taking place on Saturday. What do you make of this one?
First of all, I just love this concept of putting female title fights on fight nights and putting it on ESPN Plus, whatever they got to do. It just makes perfect sense to me. Obviously it's going to be a good fight. We know the striking differences. Grasso's a great boxer, but it seemed like Valentina was getting the most of her in the exchanges on the feet. Obviously, but then she just overcommitted in that what was it, third, fourth round. She overcommitted on a spinning back kick. Grasso got her back, and like you mentioned, it wasn't even under her chin. She just squeezed on her chin so hard. I mean, you can see how red it was after she let go, or I guess kind of not red, but like white from how hard she was squeezing.
Top of her head was all red.
Yeah. With all the blood going to her brain. But I'm excited. It's a good fight, and I just love this being on a fight night. I think they need to do every female title fight like that.
Yeah, I'm with that. I like how it gives a spotlight to women's title fights, and it doesn't. When you see it on a pay-per-view, it's sometimes now, unless it's like a Zhang Weili or someone like that. I'm thinking about the Nunes versus who'd she? I'm blanking here.
Aldana.
Yeah, Irene Aldana. I was thinking about Pena, but that fell through. Nunes versus Aldana. Like, I mean, I know it was the headline of a pay-per-view. But even for like women's title fights that are co-main events, sometimes they're just so one-sided, and it's like, man, it takes away from the momentum of a pay-per-view. Obviously, Zhang Weili, hers was one-sided, but it was still exciting. But a lot of the like the Nunes Aldana fight was just so boring. It was just so boring. Almost fell asleep watching that. But yeah, them being on a fight night main event, it's perfect for it. Makes a lot of sense, and it doesn't take away from anything from a pay-per-view. Gives them a spotlight. Perfect. I won't keep talking about that. I will talk about this fight though. Grasso's win. It was an impressive win. Great choke. She did a good job. She didn't really catch the kick. It was weird. Shevchenko Tried to go
just
for
fell. She slipped
she
almost.
tried to go for a spinning kick, ended up getting her back taken, and then lost by rear naked choke. It was a little bit fluky though. Valentina, she was doing good on the ground against Grasso. She was kind of dominating with the control time on the ground. She was up on all the scorecards. I don't want to say it was a fluke, but kind of was. I'll be honest. And there's a reason I picked Valentina in our fantasy draft that we did. Speaking of that, off to a hot start for you picking Israel Adesanya. I'm in first place right now by default, just by doing nothing. We'll see if that changes this weekend, as I have Valentina.
Come on, Grasso, get the finish for me.
Yeah, I might be in trouble if she loses again. But yeah, Valentina, she was dominating the most of that fight. I think it'll be a repeat of that. I don't think she'll make that same mistake she made in the last time. I don't think she'll get as careless as she did. I don't think she'll get a finish. I don't think she'll get that back on Grasso, but I think she'll win by decision.
And yeah, that's exactly what I had. I just think it was such an unlike her mistake to get reckless and overcommit on a strike like that just was unneeded. She was winning the fight. There was no need to throw a spinning back kick to the body. Sure, if it dropped her, it would have been a cool highlight, but it was just dumb. It was bad IQ. I think she knows going in this fight, Grasso will take any advantage that Valentina wants to give her. And if it's making a big mistake like that, Grasso will jump right on it. So I think Valentina's going to overcorrect. She's going to be super patient in this fight, and she's just going to pick her apart because I think she knows she's the better fighter. And, if it stays standing, I think she has the advantage, even though Grasso's a good boxer. And if it goes to the ground, like you mentioned, she out-grappled her other than getting choked out. So I think she probably 50-45s her and gets the belt back.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with that. I think Grasso might take her round. She might win some exchanges on the feet. Shevchenko, she's good on the feet, but Grasso, like you said, she's a good boxer. So maybe there'll be one round where Grasso sneaks in there, but ultimately I think it'll be a pretty one-sided fight. I think Shevchenko gets her belt back.
I could see definitely early Valentina maybe start slow, just feeling her out, not wanting to make any mistakes, and Grasso can take some rounds. But I think once the fight goes on, Valentina's skill will show, and she'll get the win. Yeah,
I agree. Moving on to the co-main event of this fight night card. Kevin Holland versus JDM. Hell of a co-main event. I'm really excited for this one. Holland has a big reach advantage, but JDM is dangerous in the pocket, as we saw in the Randy Brown fight. What do you make of this one?
I'm a big Kevin Holland guy just because he's such a gangster. He'll take any fight. And, I mean, he's fighting down here, kind of. I mean, I don't know what the rankings show between these two men, but I'm pretty sure Holland's fighting down, right? So it's kind of interesting that he is fighting down. I know it's an exciting fight, and Holland loves just taking exciting fights and putting on a show. But if he was, I feel like he was kind of in a spot here where he should be fighting up. But man, the guy's just such a gangster. He'll take any fight. And he probably saw that name, Jag Della Maddalena, and he's seen the hype that he's kind of gotten, and the hype train that he's getting. Even though his last performance was kind of shaky, and on that fight night right after his opponent pulled out on the pay-per-view. But I think the height advantage, the reach advantage is maybe going to be too much in this fight. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give JDM a little bit of a pass for his, not too convincing of a win over Hafez. It was, I mean, he had a fight, I think it was the week before, right? They got canceled?
Yeah.
The week before, so probably had to make 2 weight cuts. That's not easy at all. And it's short notice against a guy who has grappling. JDM was dominant on the feet in that fight, though. So I don't have many concerns about him going into this fight, especially because there's not much threat of a takedown from Kevin Holland. As we saw in his last fight, he can get submissions, something that Darce choke against Chiesa. But he's not going to go for takedowns. He's not going to be shooting for takedowns. So JDM doesn't have to worry much about that. And a lot of the problem with fighting grapplers is the threat of getting taken down, not as much getting taken down. So I think if this stays on the feet like I expect, I think JDM, he's too dangerous in the pocket. I know he's got a severe reach disadvantage, but if he gets inside, he's got serious power. We saw it in the Randy Brown fight, which Randy Brown similarly built to Kevin Holland, big lanky guy, and JDM had no problem getting inside the pocket and putting him down. Had him on really wobbly legs. Hilarious knockdown.
Yeah,
and then he jumped on top and got a rear naked choke. I don't think it'll go as quickly. I think Kevin Holland is a much better striker than Randy Brown. I think he's smarter as well. I think this gets into late round 2, and I think JDM catches him, wins by TKO.
Wow. I mean,
I want Kevin Holland to win because I love Kevin Holland, and man, he's BMF. He's the definition of that. But man, JDM's he's so dangerous inside. I think once he gets inside on Kevin Holland, lands some big shots, I think he puts him out of there.
But I do just want to say, do not ever compare Kevin Holland and Randy Brown again, because
I'm just talking about their builds, all right?
Randy Brown far better. Okay,
he does.
Randy Brown sucks. Kevin Holland does not suck, and I think he's just a smarter fighter than Randy Brown is. He's gonna he's gonna go to the body. Kevin Holland's gonna have to go to the body in this fight, whether it's the push kicks, the front kicks to the body, head kicks, even just use those long legs. You know, like you mentioned, in the pocket, I don't think he's gonna want to get anywhere close to being in the pocket with JDM. So if he can just keep the range, I think Kevin Holland catches him in round 2. You know, whether it be with those long arms or with the long legs, I think he just catches him up top and I don't want to say sleeps him, but definitely knocks him down and pounds away. Maybe even goes for another dart, you know, once he, you know, knocks him down and goes for a sub or something. That's just how I see it going personally. I think he has better IQ than Randy Brown. He's not going to make the same mistake and get caught. And I think that reach advantage will be huge for him. He'll get the win.
Yeah, that's why I don't think JDM's just gonna go out there and smoke him early in round 1. Yeah. He's much better than Randy Brown. But me saying that was saying, you know, JDM, he's shown that he can get inside, get in the pocket with a big lanky guy, and can put him down. And you know, Holland, man, he's a great striker. So I am worried about him keeping it at range with those kicks, especially because his legs are so long too. That could be a problem for JDM, but I'm just worried for Holland whenever JDM gets inside.
It's an amazing matchup, though. I mean,
yeah, I'm really excited for this. I think, regardless of how this goes, I think it's going to end in a finish. And even if it doesn't, it's still going to be great striking exchanges. I'm pumped for that one.
Going to go out there swinging for Noche UFC, baby. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Moving on to Raul Rojas versus Terrence Mitchell. Kind of another bum for Rojas, just to get him back on track after that loss. Yeah, he's a massive -700 favorite in this fight, and kind of fair. I see why. Big grappling advantage here. What do you make of this one?
Terrence Mitchell is lanky, though. So, you know, if he could just go train with some other lanky guys, they'd teach him the ways of the lanky man to stop a takedown. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Raul Rosas is so relentless with his wrestling that he's going to go for it. We know the man doesn't have hands. He's not going to go out there and try and strike with Terrence Mitchell. He's going to probably take him down and just leg hump him for 3 rounds. And the 18, what is he, maybe 19 now, year old, is going to get back on track with a wrestle fuck, I think.
I think he is going to rely on the grappling this one. I don't think it's going to go the distance, though. I think Mitchell will be able to fight the hands. You know, I think he'll get the takedowns. I don't think Rojas will have any problem getting him down on the ground. But I think Rojas is going to be working for a submission in round 1. Won't be able to get it, but he's going to find that in round 2. I think he's going to get the back, get in a rear naked choke or something like that. Some type of submission. I'm not sure what it'll be, but I think he's going to sub Terrence Mitchell. I think sometime in round 2.
I feel like Rosas maybe lacks strength at times because he is such a young guy. And I'm not sitting here saying Terrence Mitchell is, you know, some super strong bantamweight or whatever. I'm just saying he's a seasoned vet. He's probably worked out a lot more in his life than Raul Rosas has. I know Rosas is a pretty stout bantamweight, but maybe he just lacks some of those techniques and where he can use his strength. He's inexperienced, right? So that's why I kind of just have him wrestle and not being able to get a finish. But I think he'll definitely win. This guy sucks.
Well put.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all the fights we're going to talk about for Noche UFC. Very excited for this. One of the best fight nights of the year. No question about it. Hopefully it delivers.
Hope so, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week for episode 9. We'll be talking about the fights this weekend. We'll have more to talk about. Possibly some fight announcements. We haven't had some announcements in a while, so we'll be on the lookout for that. And yeah, until next time, we'll see you guys.
See ya.